Microphone check, microphone check. Hey, what's up? This is the Intricately Woven Podcast, and I am Rachel Cancino-Neal, health restoration coach and nutritional therapy practitioner. I'm here with my husband, Derek Neal.
Hey guys.
To talk about the complicated body in an uncomplicated way. In season 2, which is this current season, we are zooming in on digestion and what the heck that actually means. In today's episode, we will be answering the question, is it really all about gut health? Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Derek, it's been a while since we recorded. We had the intent on, recording a lot more frequently, but then life happened and here we go,
Sure, you were working on in-client stuff and...
Yes. Client stuff, trying to figure out, how to do successful in-person consultations and one-on-one consultations and all that. So the podcast has been a bit on the back burner. And so we're picking it back up and burning away.
Burning away.
Because it's on the back burner.
Yeah, I caught it.
I've never thought about that before, but that's how I'm going to say it now. Okay, so, Derek.
Quiz time?
I'm not going to force a quiz upon you since it has been a while.
Praise the Lord.
Okay, so it's been a while. So we're going to go through a review still. And as we're reviewing, I'm going to cover some some of the stuff. And then you can ask follow-up questions if you have anything to go with that.
Got it.
Okay. So far in this season, we've talked about phases of digestion, what digestion is, and some of the processes involved with healthy digestion. All right, we're going to go over each of these real quick in our review before we jump into today's topic and question, which is it really all about gut health? Derek?
Yes.
What do you remember about the 2 phases of digestion we've learned about so far?
2 phases.
Yes.
Well, everything starts in the brain, so we've got the brain phase. And then stomach phase?
Those are the 2 phases, that we have talked about. These are important. These are important.
I do remember they're important.
Okay. Well, let's first talk about how long they last for. Tell me about brain phase, or the technical cephalic phase. Tell me about it.
Well, I'm going to stick with the brain phase name.
That's fine.
It's easier for me. I'm pretty sure the whole process is like 3 to 4 hours, if I'm remembering correctly.
You are not remembering.
All right. Well, whole process? Like, whole process?
Oh, no. So...
Or are you wanting...
Brain phase, the kickstarting process.
Brain phase. Oh.
Yeah.
That's just a few minutes.
That's just a few minutes. Yep,
I
it
did
is.
not translate that question properly.
Brain phase, meaning the time it takes your brain to register that you're about to eat, that you're about to consume food, and it gets your digestive organs prepared for what's about to happen. Now, the brain is aware of digestive processes throughout the whole time. So just because it's the kickstart process is not turned off after that. There's all these other things that's going to go on, right, as the food's moving through. Most of the communication is just happening within the gut itself, but if there's something changing or an emotional state that has changed, the brain will be alerted and that changes everything else. But brain phase, the kickstart process of digestion, only lasts a few minutes. This is the time it takes you to look at your food, smell it, interact with it before you start eating, to get the mouth salivating, the stomach growling, that little window of time. All right. What about stomach phase? What do you remember about that?
Oh, stomach phase would be... Well, time, I guess that's going to be in the hour area, the multiple hours. Let's say 2 to 4 hours, maybe.
Yeah, depending on what you've eaten. Like if you've eaten something really small, if we're looking at a major meal, 3 to 4 hours, depending what's a part of that meal. So if it's has like proteins and fiber in it, that's gonna take a bit longer. That's why those things can like make you feel fuller longer. Yeah. So the stomach phase happens after some processes have already occurred, right? So we talk about phases and processes. Phases is like these big phases of cephalic phase, stomach phase. Well, there's in between, right? So like you look at a food, then you put the food in your mouth. What do you do while it's in your mouth?
You chew it.
You chew it up, right? So you're starting to chew it up, and hopefully you're chewing it really well. So you're actually breaking it down. Physically, you're changing the structure, and then chemically, all these things are happening as well. Okay? So then you are taking a bite. Let's say you're taking a bite of a delicious Larabar.
Ooh.
If you're not aware what Larabar is, then you're missing out.
It's
pretty good. I will say homemade Larabar is better than store-bought, but that's for another time. But let's pretend you take a bite of this, you chewed it up, and now you're going to change the consistency so when you swallow it, your stomach is more ready to receive it, right? And so you've thoroughly moistened that food up with your spit. And through this whole process, your body is introducing and getting to know what is in your mouth and what's coming down. And not only is it going to help you digest it, but it's also going to protect your body as a first line defense for your immune system. Okay?
Okay.
So you swallow it, put it back in your throat, goes all the way down. Here we are. These muscles are squeezing it all the way down. We make it down to the stomach. And now we are in stomach phase. Once a food enters the stomach, in this stomach phase, it's like we flipped on the blender.
That's a fun idea.
Right? So, it's like this. Your mouth has chewed it up. It's like you're chopping down, like let's say you're making a fruit smoothie. Right?
Yeah.
Normally, you don't just put a huge chunk of fruit, like a whole apple or a banana might be a better instance. Like, you might throw a whole banana in there, but normally you kind of break it down a little bit before you put it in there, right? That's like similar to what your mouth is doing. And then you put it in there. What else do you need to make that a good smoothie?
Liquid.
Right? You're going to put some liquid in there. What if you only put like a little bit of liquid?
Yeah, it's going to be frustrating trying to make it.
Right. It's not going to
get stuck. It's not going to mix in well.
Yeah. Yeah. And depending on the machine you have, you might have to like urge it along, right? Kind of like shove it down or depending on the kind of blender you have. But if the machine is working well and you have these parts in there and you introduce the right amount of liquid, now you can actually make a drinkable smoothie. That's essentially what's happening after you've chewed up food. You've broken it down to bits. You've softened it up, hopefully made of paste. Then it's making down your stomach, and now your stomach is like, oh, okay. So the machine, the muscles of the stomach are trying to churn that into more of a liquid consistency like that of like a drinkable smoothie. Okay, and so all that is really important that the stomach does that.
Is that liquid still? Is that the chyme?
Chyme. So the food that is coming down, that's called the bolus. Comes down and then it gets turned into that drinkable smoothie. That's called chyme. Okay? But you have all these juices called gastric juices getting released by your stomach to make the consistency right and to make everything liquid because your body wants it to be in a liquid form. That's the goal. Okay? So to do this, you need all these different things happening, but you need the right amount of acidity as a part of that picture, so that it can actually break it down all the way. If everything goes well, then you have a liquid form, you have access to different nutrients, you're setting up the rest of the digestive processes and the phases in a really like positive way if you do that first part well. It's the cephalic phase and the stomach phase, if you do that well. Any questions, Derek?
Where you're talking about all those juices coming in, I'm assuming then if you're dehydrated, that's going to reduce the amount of juices there.
Right.
That your body has readily available.
Yeah. Okay. So you'll still produce them, but yeah, if you're in a dehydrated state, it might be more difficult to produce the amount that you need.
That's needed. Okay.
Yeah. All right, so all that said, so we said cephalic phase or the brain phase, stomach phase, Now we're left with one more major phase called the intestinal phase. But there are things that have to happen before the intestines really get involved in the digestion and absorption of your nutrients. So that's what we're going to be talking about, and we're going to see how this works out in the intestinal phase. Here we go. Here we are in coffee shop talk. Boop, boop. I came up with the theme song for this, and I don't remember what it was, but it was pretty good. I think it was like coffee shop talk time.
We need to go back and get that one.
That was
whatever
pretty
the
good.
other one was.
I don't know. I'm pretty good at coming up with them on the fly, so.
You even instilled that in Jaden.
Yep. Who is our son, who also likes to make up songs, because I always made up songs when he was a wee tyke. Oh well. Okay, so we started off with this question. Derek, what was the question?
Is it really all about gut health?
Some of you might be sitting here and thinking, yeah, it is, Rachel. Doi.
Doi?
Doi. And to that I would say, touche. It's highly important. It's very important. Perhaps some would argue the very most important thing in the whole world. But Derek, you're not like totally entrenched in this world. Entrenched in this world of gut health and studying the gut. When I talk about gut health, what do you think of?
I think about whether or not I get a stomach ache when I eat food.
I remember you mentioning that.
Yeah.
And where did you say your stomach is?
Anything below my rib cage.
Folks, listen carefully. The stomach is a single location.
It is the entire belly, in my opinion.
It's a single organ. You have the abdominal cavity, which carries all these different digestive organs. And the stomach is just one organ in the upper left quadrant.
So
it
in
is
that
not
case,
your whole abdomen.
Upper left, is that upper left when you are looking at someone? Or
take your left hand, put it in the upper region below your chest, basically. Kind of like right below the rib cage.
Okay, so I never have a true stomach ache then.
Okay. So when I asked you where did you usually have a stomach ache?
It would be more by my belly button.
Mm-hmm. So here's a little tip I'm going to give you right now, before the segment, what you can do. When you say you have a stomach ache, and this is true to any person, okay? If you say, man, I'm having a stomach ache, pause, think about where you actually are feeling the discomfort, okay? If it's in the upper left-hand quadrant region, then it might be your stomach, right? If it's you just got done eating and you're feeling some bloating in that area, then it's probably your stomach. If it's 3 hours later and you're saying you have a stomach ache, is it still possible? Yes. But if you're now pointing to middle area to lower region, now we're talking about different parts. Can be small intestine, can be large intestine that's being impacted. But yeah, so generally that upper left-hand region, quadrant, is where you would find the stomach. And normally you would feel that stomach pain pretty quickly. So going back to the stomach phase, if you're feeling it within, a couple hours of eating in that area, then it might be your stomach. But if you're feeling it in more the lower part, now we're looking at, a different region, a different organ altogether. Still a part of the GI tract, but not the stomach. Okay? All right. So in the world of gut health, I did a quick search just to make sure I was correct, and I was correct. Most people associate gut health with
gut bacteria.
Gut bacteria. Here's the thing. Gut bacteria, super important. I'm actually reading a book right now called The Mind-Gut Connection, and it's super, super interesting, the things that he's pointing out, and He goes through all these different things that impact our gut bacteria, how our gut bacteria communicate with our brain, and all these different things. So obviously very important. But I think sometimes we want to jump to gut bacteria without paying attention to the things that happen that impact it in the north regions. So our stomach acidity can impact gut bacteria. If we are not in a calm, restful state when we're about to eat something, that can throw off gut bacteria. So I wanted to take a pause on just focusing hyperly on gut bacteria, and that's the most important thing. It's super important, but we need to understand actually what goes into that conversation. And so if we broaden our understanding about the gut and what all is at play here, then we can see how that stage is set for healthy gut bacteria, or gut health is what we usually refer to. So we're looking at that. We're going to look at how the brain, stomach impact how well the liver and gallbladder do their job. Here's the thing. Liver, gallbladder is a big part of the process of digestion. And so if we ignore that, then we're going to skip out on things that are directly impacting gut bacteria. How many times can I say gut bacteria?
We've said it a lot.
Gut bacteria.
Gut bacteria.
Derek, before we go any further, what is digestion?
Digestion, my dear, would be the breaking down of food.
You are correct.
Digestion.
Digestion. Can you spell it, please?
If I look down at the word on the paper, I can.
Go with your gut instinct.
Your
gut instinct. That was good. What does your bacteria tell you?
I don't know what it tells me.
Oh, no. He has a panicky look in his eyes.
No, I'm not going to try that.
Okay. All right.
Yep, I would have been wrong.
Oh, my gosh. That's my husband.
But it is spelled Digestion for any of you who were trying to spell it in your head.
Did you think it was a J?
No, I was going to spell it D-I-E-G.
Oh, like you're dying.
The food is dying because it's being broken down.
Okay.
There's a logic behind it, at least.
I mean, it's not dying, but okay. I'll give it to you. All right. So for our bodies to be able to use food, meaning to break it down and to get to the building blocks, we need to be able to break the food down into the smaller parts. Okay. So we've already talked about how the stomach and the mouth work together, right? Where you chew the food, becomes this paste, there's a bunch of spit, and all this stuff happens in your mouth, and you swallow it, and then your stomach's like, sweet, I'll take over, I'll make this into a smoothie. In the process, it's helping, all the acid is breaking protein down, but it's also protecting your body from outside invaders and pathogens. Outside bacteria. Oh, did you hear that? Outside bacteria. You can get bacterial overgrowth if your stomach isn't working very well because it can't help regulate the amount of bacteria that's coming in. Very important. It's super intense, that the acidity of the stomach. Very intense, and it absolutely needs to be intense. Okay, I think we talked about this last time that, if you're taking antacids, you can be setting up your body that, yes, maybe you're not getting the acid reflux, but if you just stay there and not try to uncover what's going on, then you might be setting up your body for more things. And many a times when people are having problems with stomach acidity, heartburn, you need to take a look to make sure you don't have a bacterial overgrowth, which is H. pylori. H. pylori is very common when your stomach is having a hard time doing its job. H. pylori is usually part of that picture. Not every single time, but it can definitely be, especially if it's going on for a long time. We want to take a look at that. Okay. So yeah, our stomach needs to have all these things going on in order for the next phase to be done properly. So we talked about, you already mentioned chyme, right? Mm-hmm. So you have the smoothie-like consistency, and like very, very slowly and under very tight regulation, the stomach starts to squeeze out like a, right into a part of the small intestine called the duodenum. Okay?
Duodenum.
It's like this little hook area. And so it squirts it right in there. to then signal gallbladder, if there's like fat and stuff going on in here, the gallbladder is going to come involved with that. And the small intestine is going to then, start to respond to this chyme that's in here. And what needs to happen is that it's super, super acidic, right? This is a super acidic smoothie thing coming through. So it needs to calm the acidity down so it doesn't do any kind of damage on the way going through your intestines.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And so in order to do that, certain hormones need to be triggered. So when these certain hormones get triggered, that helps the acidity, it helps the gallbladder to do its job to contract and release its bile. And then also the pancreas starts getting involved to break down this chyme even further with its enzymes. Ooh, did I just spit out like a lot of information
You
right
did.
there?
That's okay, though.
Tell me what you just gathered from that.
What I gathered from that?
Yeah.
Well, I gathered that the stomach pushes out just like a little sample of what is actually in the stomach. Then the duodenum, if I'm pronouncing that right, is processing what was spit out from the stomach and begins the communication to, I believe you said, the gallbladder and the liver. So basically that's just like a little testing ground to know what's coming.
No. So like it will slowly squirt out the contents of the stomach.
Just little by little.
Little by little until the stomach is empty. That's why a bigger meal, especially if you have protein and fat, or protein and fiber part of it, it takes a lot longer for it to go through this whole process. And that's why it can take 3 to 4 hours, because it's slowly, so that the rest of the stuff can do their job.
So it's a slow process of, I just see like a conveyor belt and it's dripping just a little squirt out each time.
Yeah.
And it moves down the process.
When it does that, it's like it signals, like has all these huge signals that go out. There's, stuff going on with the nervous system. There's stuff going on with the hormones. And that is letting pancreas and gallbladder know, and parts of the small intestine know, like what needs to happen in order for this now to be usable by your body.
Got it.
Okay. All right. So this is a whole relationship that has to happen. And let me tell you, there's a lot of details to this. Even since I had written out this particular episode, I've learned even more about kind of what is going on. But we're not going to go into all the little parts and everything. But what I want you to remember is your stomach acid. I keep repeating this because a lot of people want to suppress stomach acid. Okay, or a lot of people eat in a stress state, and we've talked about this before. You eat in a distracted stress state. If you have stressful conversations, or you're eating while you're working, all of these things are going to bring down stomach acid. It's not going to allow the stomach to properly prepare for the food. If you do not allow the stomach to properly prepare the food, then your gallbladder is not going to get signaled correctly because the acidity isn't there. Right? It's going to impact how well your pancreas interacts with it. All of this can then impact the small intestine, which can then impact gut bacteria. And that is our focus usually when we're talking about gut health, right? And so I want to make sure that we're understanding that, if my gallbladder isn't working and I'm having gallbladder issues, which are very common, you got to pause and look at what are you eating, first of all, because it needs fat in order to activate it. Right? And so it needs fat, but it also needs that fat to be acidic. The acidity comes from the stomach. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So when we're going to talk about, I'm talking about, gallbladder bile. Bile is one regulator of what's going on with your bacteria, right? So stomach acidity is important, and now bile is really important.
So before you go farther, what is bile? What does it consist of?
What does it consist of? Well, I'm not going to get into the details of what it consists of. I mean, cholesterol is a part of it. Cholesterol has to go through this transformation process in order to start creating bile. Bile has bile salts in it. So it's got this, if I remember right, the composition of it can alter depending on a person's diet, can alter according to like hormone levels, can impact what's all in the bile, waste product, and all this stuff. So I don't want to get into all that necessarily, but we're going to look at the function of bile.
Okay.
Okay. Derek, if I told you to go and dip your hand in a tub of lard.
Got it.
And then go to the sink and just rinse it off with running water, what will happen?
Not a whole lot. The water is just going to ball up and go down the drain.
Right. So it's like basically you're repelling the water, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what needs to happen is you're going to grab some soap, put it in your hand. What's going to happen now? You're going to rub it in there and all that stuff. What's going to happen now?
The soap is going to basically kind of capture the fat or the oil that's there so it can be washed away.
Right. But what's happening is it's breaking it down into smaller bits so that it can be dealt with, basically. And that's what bile does with fat. So bile comes and emulsifies the fat, breaks it into these smaller little bits so that then the rest of the processes, like what's called lipase, can come through and further break down that fat. But bile needs to be in there to just like wash this fat down to its smaller sizes, these globules, into these smaller little bits so that your body can then further digest them so they can actually use it.
Now, I probably have missed this earlier, so my apologies. Where does the bile come from?
Okay, so bile is made by the liver, and then most of that will get stored into the gallbladder for concentration.
That's right. Okay.
Right? So the gallbladder will concentrate this bile, and it'll become 10 times stronger, which is really important, right? In the nerd out section, we're going to do a little different. I'm going to be talking about gallbladder removal and what that means and what are some consequences of that. What happens is that the liver produces it, and some of that makes it into the small intestine, but the majority of it goes up into the gallbladder, get highly concentrated, and that bile then has different functions, a lot of different functions. One of the things is to break down that fat so you have access to the nutrients that are inside the fat.
Mm-hmm. So, like a low-fat diet, that's obviously going to put a lot of stress on the gallbladder.
So what happens if you do low fat, it doesn't stimulate it. And that's when you can get bile sludge. So basically, it's like if you have, I don't know, in cars and oil,
so
if you don't use it.
If you don't change the oil, it can get sludgy.
It gets like kind of like this thick.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to use it, right? You got to run it every so often to like make it so that it's washing through basically.
Right.
And that can start happening with your gallbladder if you don't eat fat, if you exclude fat from your diet. And there's a lot of other consequences of it. But yeah, one of the things is your gallbladder won't get contracted. So if that happens, then there's one of the things that the gallbladder helps to communicate with the liver to let it know how much more bile it needs to produce. And so it senses what's going on. It communicates with the liver. It concentrates these different things, like the bile. So it's way more potent. So things coming through, it can do its job so much more efficiently than if you're like using like watered down soap versus highly concentrated soap.
Mm-hmm.
It has a totally different effect on how well it can work.
Right. Okay.
So you brought about like liver and production, and you asked about like what's inside bile. The liver actually uses bile when it's like producing it as a way of getting waste product out of your body. Okay, so things like extra cholesterol, hormones, other toxins can be removed from the body by pumping into the bile. Bile goes through and does its thing, and eventually you poop it out. You poop out whatever doesn't need to be used and staying inside of your body. You poop it out, and so that bile composition, what's inside of it, and how well you're able to get it out, impacts gut bacteria, right? I'm not saying everything is tied up with just bile, but it is one of the things that you want to think about when you're thinking about gut health. Okay, so this is important to know, right? Gut bacteria and bile makeup, so what's inside the bile, are closely linked. And if there's a disruption or dysfunction with either one, so either with your gut bacteria or your bile, then the body can now shift from being functional to dysfunctional. So those two things are very important working together. We can't just get hyper-focused on just gut bacteria, forgetting about gallbladder with the bile up here. Okay?
Right.
And vice versa.
Yeah. I mean, going back to your blender analogy, it's without liquid in with the components, it's just not going to work right.
Right.
Your body's going to have to work so much harder. That blender would have to work so much harder. You may have to have extra force to push the food down to get to the blades to actually create some sort of paste, but it's going to get stuck in there.
Yeah. And that's when people have a stomach ache, a true stomach ache. It could mean that the stomach acidity wasn't high enough and the amount of gastric juice wasn't high enough. And so therefore, and part of gastric juice is the acidity. And so if you don't have that, then you might get a stomach ache because just like what you're saying, like it can't liquefy effectively.
Mm-hmm.
What needs to happen as soon as food hits your stomach, it needs to be liquid. Like that's how acidic it needs to be, and the amount of gastric juices need to be available. Okay, so let's kind of like run through this one more time because I know I've said a lot of technical things. Stomach acid impacts communication with the liver and the gallbladder to release bile. So it communicates in the small intestine so that the gallbladder knows to release bile to deal with the fat that's in that chyme, right? The bile breaks down the fats, and this is most effective when the gallbladder has had a chance to concentrate the bile. Bile also impacts how well waste product can move out of your body, and it's a vital part of keeping gut bacteria in a balanced state.
So would you say those that have had gallbladder removed since bile helps with the removal of waste product, that if you've had your gallbladder removed, you may have trouble with constipation?
We're going to get into that in just a second and nerd out about some of the consequences that have been observed from gallbladder removal. Okay. And, what I want to say up front about that is that there might be times where that's totally appropriate, like where your gallbladder needs to be removed. But there might be other times that you can actively be doing something differently to help rescue your gallbladder, because I am not in the school of thought that, so gallbladder is considered an accessory organ. You will survive just fine without it. Can you survive? Yes. But we're going to see there are consequences when you remove this organ, and those will always get talked about. So we're going to go ahead and get into that in our nerd out. I encourage you to stick around if you have your gallbladder removed, or there is talks about it, or you know somebody that has, and more than likely you know somebody that has had this happen. So stick around. We're gonna nerd out about gallbladder removal. Let's nerd out. It's time to nerd out.
Whoa.
Thank you. All right. So, we are talking about gallbladder removal. Dun, 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 dun. Here's something that you may or may not know. Gallbladder removal is the gold standard for gallstones. Meaning, if you have gallstones, and especially if it's a chronic thing, one of the most suggested surgeries would be to remove your gallbladder in that case. Okay?
Got it.
So we already talked about what can make the gallbladder not work very well. Well, a low-fat diet. You don't exercise that organ, it's going to lose its function, right? And so, like, if you're like, oh, I wonder if that's going to be happening to me, one, try a little fat and see if that can help to generate, some things. If you have like a lot of active pain, there's like, gentler things that you might want to do. But depending on the size of the gallstones, there might be alternatives for you. Now, if they're really big and causing a lot of problems, that might be something different. But if you're like in the early phases, or you've cut out fat for a long time, then you might want to start introducing that really slowly, basically to start working out that muscle again, to start working out that organ again. So this information I'm about to bring to you comes from an article called, let me see if I can get this, Cholecystectomy and Risk of Metabolic Syndrome. Cholecystectomy is gallbladder removal, and the risk of metabolic syndrome, basically how well your body is able to utilize energy sources, right? To use it and store it. Okay, so when they were looking at this, they were looking at different patients who have gone through it. There was a comparison of the expected outcomes and what they actually the observable outcomes. And I'm going to be reading about the observable outcomes because I have heard from people who've gone through gallbladder removal, they can relate to one or more than one of the things on this list. Okay, so one, there's an increase of bile acid recirculation that is twice the normal amount. So bile is supposed to make its way out of your body. They expected it to be fine. It can regulate itself back out. Well, they're finding that it was twice the normal amount when you have a gallbladder removed. Okay. Remember, one of the things is that the gallbladder is a sensory organ and it helps the liver know how much bile it needs to produce. And that way it can get stored. Some gets stored, some gets used. Most of it gets stored, though, in the gallbladder to get released. Okay. Bile acids and cholesterol are excreted into bile at higher rates. So you might start seeing changes in your cholesterol balance. What's starting to happen there? Cholesterol metabolism, cholesterol balance is really important for your overall health, right? So if you start messing with that, that can start, affecting other things. Removing your gallbladder can change, wait for it, gut bacteria. I know. I feel like I'm like really preaching at somebody right now. I don't know why I feel like that. I think it's because I hadn't really been taught, just by watching things or reading like random blog posts, that your bile and your gallbladder can impact your gut bacteria. So in case you've missed that, gut bacteria, bile, close relationship. Removing your gallbladder can change homeostasis of glucose, which is sugar, lipids, which are fats, serum and liver triglycerides, and production of VLDLs. VLDLs are ones that if you're getting a lot of these, then that can cause inflammation. That inflammation can lead to plaquing, that can lead to artery issues. Okay, so circulation issues. So by removing gallbladder, you can potentially mess up how well your body can stabilize sugar, metabolize fats. It can impact your triglycerides and your VLDLs. These are all things that can lead to inflammation.
So basically, it can increase your likelihood of becoming diabetic?
Probably depending on the severity, right? Anytime you start messing with glucose and the function of it, anytime blood sugar becomes dysregulated, there are going to be effects from it. Is it going to be full-blown diabetes? I don't know. Maybe it depends on everything else. But you might start noticing you become more hangry. When before you're fine, but now you become hangry. Well, that can be an indication that, that gallbladder removal has impacted your blood sugar regulation. So, yeah, so it's not just, yes, it's deemed an accessory organ, the gallbladder, but like your body needs it. It needs it for every part of the body is needed. Okay. If you're in a position where the gallstones are too big, this is actually becoming very dangerous and stuff. Okay, I totally get it. But if there's an opportunity for you to change things prior to that, find out what's going on, get some testing done, start including some fat very slowly. If you have not had a lot of fat in a long time, don't go crazy and go keto. That can be not a great idea for you, right? I'm sure there are people who have done it and they're fine, but I would not recommend it. I would recommend going really slow with it. So when your gallbladder has been removed, then there are changes in your metabolism that can occur. You got to be aware of that. Okay, so you're going to need to be really strategic in how you support your body if your gallbladder has been removed. Okay, you're going to need to support your body in a way that allows it to digest fats well. So you can get access to things like fatty acids, DHA, EPA, prostaglandins. All of those are important of how well you can digest fats. But you're also going to know that you're going to support your body with fat-soluble vitamins. So ADK, and E are fat-soluble vitamins, which means your body, those vitamins depend on you digesting fats in order to get access to them. So you might need to be supplementing. But again, don't do it blindly. You need to especially with vitamin D. These are ones that can get stored. Fat-soluble vitamins are ones that can get stored in your fat tissue. So you can overload on them and you don't want to do that. Okay, so you want the proper amount. If you want to learn more about gallbladder removal and other effects that you might notice from that, there is a video put out from the Wellness Way, which is where I got my education, part of my education from the Wellness Way Academy. This video might be really helpful to you. It's titled, if you go to thewellnessway.com, you can do a search, How Gallbladder Removal Affects Mental Health. So the title right there, if your mental state started changing after you had gallbladder removal, your mental state may have changed because your gallbladder is no longer there.
Wow.
Right? Again, if you're looking at why, how could that be? Well, if it's there to help get toxins out of your body, if it's there to help get extra hormones out of your body, if it's there to help regulate gut bacteria, if it's there to help break down fat, all that bile concentration, that's the key thing, right? You still will make bile, but it's not going to get concentrated. Just like watery soap is not going to have the same effect as concentrated soap, so is the same with bile. It'll still function, but it may not function to the fullness as if you're having the concentrated form.
Right.
Okay? So this is something like I've been trained in through the Wellness Way Academy with working with things. So you might be like, well, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? How can I tell if my body is doing okay? That's where good testing. So that's something I do with my clients, offer different testing options, and then go through that. But one of the things you can do is look at stool testing to take a look at how well are you digesting fats? How well is your body getting rid of extra cholesterol? How well is your body, like, how much triglycerides are in your stool? So all things that you can know. And also, if you get some good comprehensive testing done, you can take a look at what is your gut bacteria balance like. So that's really important because of its relationship with bile. So you aren't like, floating on an island and now, oh shoot, I have my gallbladder removed. You will need to be more strategic and you will need to be more intentional about what you're going to do to support your body because it does need this support. Okay. So we're going to get more into that now in our What You Can Do segment.
Wow, so you totally covered a lot of different things. We had the liver, the stomach, the gallbladder, and their relationship. So what do we do?
I love how rehearsed that sounds.
I'm really good at rehearsing.
How
you totally flipped the switch on me here.
I flipped the switch?
Flipped the script.
Yeah, literally.
Yes. You normally open up.
Yeah. Oh, man.
So let me try it again.
Okay.
So today you focused a lot on the stomach, the liver, the gallbladder, and their relationship.
Yeah.
So this section is called What Can We Do? Or What You Can Do, if we get it right.
Yeah.
So what can I do?
All right. So first of all, if we're talking about supporting gut health, we want to support the upper end, right? The north. It's been referred to as the north to south process, right? So one, you want to, if we're going to the very top, brain phase. Get that brain phase going, right?
Look at your food.
I know. Good note. Like we have said this so many different times. But I was actually just talking to a client the other day and she was like, what if even the thought of a certain food makes me feel nauseous? I told her, don't eat that food. Okay, if you have a physical reaction just to the thought of the food, it could be that your body is already saying, I don't want any part of it, right? There's all the sciencey stuff that can go along with it. But if the thought of a certain food makes you feel sick and nauseous, do not participate in that food. Okay, if you're like, well, I just never had it, I don't know. If you're hesitant, that's a little different, right? Create an environment that can make it an appealing thing, okay? So that's a part of the brain phase. Engage with engage with your food. Engage in the process of mealtime and enjoy it. Okay, so that's going to support your body being in a state that's ready to digest. When it's there, ready to digest, then your stomach can do its job, right? So you want to make sure your stomach acidity is going well. This might mean that for you might need to support stomach acid. Okay, so doing something like apple cider vinegar, betaine HCl, which is like what stomach acid is, hydrochloric acid. And so you might need to take that. If you take it and you feel absolutely awful, right? Don't do it anymore. Get some testing done. It could be you have some H. pylori going on. Especially if the HCl, if you take like one HCl and you have a lot of, let me rephrase this. If you take HCl and you have like, you take one, let's say, and you have a burning sensation, it's like uncomfortable, but like it's one, well, then your stomach acid is probably okay, right? If you take it and you feel super nauseous, that might mean it's just too much for you at this time. Okay, so there might be some other work you have to do. And that's when getting some good testing, what's your intestinal walls like? Is your stomach well protected from the acid? Is there an overgrowth going on? So different things you want to look at. But you want to make sure stomach acid production is good. If it is not, if you do struggle with acid reflux, if you do struggle with GERD, then you want to get to the why. What is going on right now? Okay, and one of the things you can do is some good stool testing. If you suspect that you're not digesting fats, and you think this because you feel discomfort after you're done eating fats, then including things like bitters into your meal can be helpful. So things like dandelion greens or dandelion root. There's like dandelion root tea that you could do. Eating some chard, eating some collards. Beet greens are really great options. Or drinking like I think the dandelion tea might be an easy one, or better yet, if you do like a dandelion extract or like a tincture, that can really stimulate things, and it actually can really be really supportive of your gallbladder to get it kind of moving its stuff along. Okay. If your gallbladder is really struggling, then I would definitely suggest doing like a dandelion root extract or the tincture form. That's what I would recommend if you can handle that. If your liver function is struggling, find out why. Okay, so your liver is a workhorse. It has a lot of different functions in charge of to keep your body stable. Okay, so if you're on medication or you have a sluggish liver, like it just kind of feels off, or your medication tends to give you side effects, that can mean that your body's having a hard time breaking stuff down and get it out of your body. So you want to definitely consider like what is going on there. So first of all, take a look at your medication. Learn about your medication, see how it works if you're taking medication. You can do something like a castor oil pack over your liver. If your liver's on the right hand side, so opposite, it kind of goes in right over the stomach. But putting like below your chest in the rib cage area, putting a castor oil pack right there. You can just Google castor oil. It's all over. But you can do something like that. That might help to stimulate the liver to release what it needs to release, and reduce some inflammation there. If you tend to eat a lot of fat, maybe consider reducing it if you are having gallbladder issues or you're not able to digest fats well. I'm not saying eliminating it, but you might need to reduce it just as you support your stomach acid. Okay? So when I'm saying fat, I'm not talking about, okay, just reduce, still include your fried foods, still include your canola oil. Wrong. I am talking about foods that are like avocados or nuts or, fish, those kind of things, extra virgin olive oil, to still include that. Also, if you don't have a gallbladder, you basically want to think that you have to carry your gallbladder with you. So that's where like ox bile is really great. Wellness Way actually has a product called the Gallbladder Complex, which is the one I would recommend to my clients, because it has things in there to support, to give you bile in a concentrated form, but it also has other things to help support the consistency of that bile and your body kind of going through the process of using it well.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Whew.
There's a lot of things in there.
Was that a lot?
It just seems like it. I mean, you touched on stomach and liver and gallbladder, like we already talked about.
Right. Kind of just building up on that. And so, like the next time we record, we'll be talking about truly the intestines now, like what's going on with the small intestine, what's going on with the large intestine. What are the different functions there? But I just obviously wanted to have a conversation, maybe broaden your scope of understanding of gut health, and not just looking at, yes, gut bacteria, very important, It impacts a lot of different things that I'm just learning even more so, all the things that it's impacting. But there are things that are also impacting gut bacteria that maybe you hadn't considered before. So, yeah, that's what I have for you today. Just a reminder, nothing works in isolation, right?
That's right.
Consider the whole person, not just the parts. And gut bacteria is a part of that. Gut health is a part of that. If you have any questions about this episode, you can email them to me. I don't know if I can respond via Spotify or, I think that's the only place. Yeah, I don't know if I can reply to comments on there. I've tried and I haven't figured it out. It shows you that I am not some kind of expert in this area. So it'll be a lot easier. If you have a specific question about this episode, email me at rachel@icanreclaim.com. I'll put it in the description so you have that. But yeah, if you have questions, please email me. All right. That's it for this episode. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Derek.
And we are hoping to help you put the pieces of your health together. Talk to you next time.
Bye.